Not in a vague someday way, in detail. The kind of kitchen you'd have, the trips you'd take in the fall, the names you both laughed about for kids you hadn't had yet. They talked about your future like it was already real, like it was a place you'd both visited and were just waiting to move into. And you believed them. Why wouldn't you? Nobody describes a life that specific unless they intend to live it. Except none of it happened. The house never came. The trip kept getting postponed. The proposal that felt 3 weeks away stayed 3 weeks away for a year. And every time you brought it up, they had a reason, a real-sounding, sympathetic reason. And somehow you ended up reassuring them that it was fine, that you could wait. Here's the part nobody tells you. You weren't waiting for a future that got delayed. You were holding on to a future that was never being built. The promises weren't predictions, they were currency, and they were spent on you the moment you needed to be kept. This is future faking, and once you understand how it works, you'll be able to tell the difference between someone planning a life with you and someone using tomorrow to control you today. Future faking is the deliberate use of promises about the future to extract something from you in the present. A commitment, your patience, your forgiveness, your continued investment in something that isn't delivering. The promise is the tool. The future it describes is not the point. Your reaction to the promise is the point. I want to be precise here, because this is where people get confused and blame themselves. Future faking is not the same as a plan that fell through. People make real plans that don't work out. Life intervenes. Circumstances change. That's not manipulation. That's being human. The difference is intent and pattern. A genuine plan is something a person is actually moving toward, even slowly. A future fake is a vision deployed at the exact moment it's useful, with no machinery behind it and no movement toward it ever. Watch the timing, because the timing gives it away. The grand future tends to appear at very specific moments. When you're pulling away, suddenly there's talk of moving in together. When you've caught them in something, suddenly they're ready to finally commit. When the relationship is losing momentum and you're starting to wonder if it's going anywhere, suddenly the proposal, the ring shopping, the apartment listings they sent at midnight, the vision arrives precisely when they need to re-secure you. And then, once you're secured, it quietly recedes until the next time you start to slip. That's the tell that separates future faking from a real plan. A real plan moves forward over time, even if imperfectly. A future fake oscillates. It appears when your investment dips and disappears when your investment is restored. It's not a destination, it's a thermostat. And it works because of something true about human beings. We don't fall in love only with who a person is. We fall in love with who we become around them and the life we can picture building together. A vivid, specific future is one of the most intoxicating things another person can offer you. They're not just promising a house, they're promising the version of you that lives in it. That's why future faking can hook even cautious, experienced people. It doesn't target your judgment, it targets your hope. To understand why this works so well, you have to understand what a promise about the future actually does to your brain. When someone paints a detailed future with you in it, you don't just hear it. You start to occupy it. You imagine the kitchen. You picture the trip. Your mind moves in. And once you've mentally moved into a future, leaving the relationship no longer feels like leaving a person. It feels like demolishing a home you already live in. The future fake doesn't just add something to the relationship. It raises the cost of walking away, because now you're not abandoning what you have. You're abandoning everything you were promised you'd have. This is why people stay in relationships that aren't working. Ask them why, and they rarely talk about the present. They talk about potential. But when we move in together, it'll be different. Once we're married, he'll settle down. She said this is the year. They're not living in the relationship that exists. They're living in the one they were sold. And as long as the promised future stays alive in their mind, the disappointing present gets a pass. There's a cruel efficiency to it. Future faking lets someone enjoy all the benefits of commitment, your loyalty, your patience, your exclusivity, without ever paying the price of actually committing. Why deliver the house when describing the house works just as well? Why propose when the expectation of a proposal keeps you exactly where they want you? The promise does the labor the relationship was supposed to do. And here's the quiet damage. Every time the future is promised and then withheld, you don't usually get angry at them. You adjust. You lower what you expect. You tell yourself you're being patient, being understanding, being a good partner. The bar drops so gradually, you don't feel it move. A year in, you're grateful for crumbs you'd have rejected on day one. That recalibration, that slow lowering of what you'll accept, is not weakness. It's the predictable result of being repeatedly shown a future and then asked to wait for it. They didn't lower your standards. The pattern did. Let me give you the markers, because in the moment, future faking feels indistinguishable from romance. That's the whole problem. So you need signs you can check that don't depend on how it feels. First marker, the speed of the vision versus the speed of the action. Listen for a future that's described in high definition while the present moves at a crawl. Someone talking about your wedding before they've met your friends. Someone naming your future children before they've shown up consistently for 3 months. The gap between how fast they talk and how slowly they move is the single clearest signal. Words sprint. Behavior stalls. Second marker, promises that arrive exactly when you're pulling back. Start paying attention to the timeline. Did the talk of moving in together appear right after you mentioned needing space? Did the "I'm finally ready" speech land the week after you'd started to detach? If the grand gestures consistently show up at the moment your investment dips, you're not looking at a partner. You're looking at a thermostat regulating your loyalty. Third marker, what happens when you ask for a step, not a speech? This is the test that cuts through everything. Don't ask them to promise the future. Ask them to take one small, concrete, near-term step toward it. A date on the calendar, a conversation with a realtor, meeting your family next month. Watch what happens. A real plan welcomes a concrete step because the step is the point. A future fake resists it. There's a reason it's not the right time, an obstacle, a feeling that you're pressuring them. The vision was never meant to be built. Asking it to take one real step is how you find out. Fourth marker, the recycling of the same promise. Notice if the same future keeps getting re-promised without ever advancing. If you've had the "this is the year" conversation 3 years running, the conversation isn't a plan, it's a maintenance dose. Real plans progress, future fakes loop. And one note of fairness, because it matters. A person can sincerely mean a promise in the moment and still fail to keep it. Sincerity isn't the test. The test is the pattern over time and what happens when you ask for movement. One unkept promise is life. A consistent gap between vivid words and absent action, especially one that reappears whenever you start to leave, is a tactic. So how do you hold on to hope without handing someone a lever? Because the answer isn't to become cynical and assume every promise is a lie. That costs you real connection. The answer is to change what you weigh. The first principle, weight behavior, not words. From now on, let promises count for almost nothing and let consistent action count for almost everything. This is a hard recalibration because words are immediate and behavior takes time to read. But a person's future is written in their patterns, not their speeches. Watch what they do repeatedly, especially when it's inconvenient for them. That's the real forecast. The second principle, ask for the next step, not the whole staircase. You don't need to demand the entire future. You just need to ask for the very next concrete move toward it. And then watch. Not, do you promise we'll get married? But, let's pick a weekend to look at venues. The size of the ask should be small enough that any sincere person would say yes, and the resistance to a small, real step tells you more than any grand promise ever could. The third principle, notice your own recalibration. Ask yourself a question that cuts deep. Am I accepting things now that I would have refused a year ago? If the answer is yes, that drop didn't happen because the relationship earned it. It happened because you were managed down. Your standards a year ago weren't naive. They were data. Treat the gap between then and now as evidence. The fourth principle, and the most important one, stop dating the potential. This is the hardest and the most freeing. You are allowed to make decisions based only on what is actually here, the present relationship, the demonstrated behavior, the life that exists right now. Not the house you were promised, not the version of them that will show up. If the only thing keeping you in a relationship is a future that hasn't materialized despite plenty of time, then you're not in a relationship with a person. You're in a relationship with a promise, and a promise can't love you back. The house, the trip, the names of the children, the proposal that's always almost here. None of those are the relationship. The relationship is what's actually happening between you, today, measured in behavior, not in the vividness of the future you were sold. Future faking works because it doesn't target your intelligence. It targets your hope, which is the best thing about you. So you don't have to kill your hope, you just have to stop letting someone spend it. Weight behavior over words. Ask for the next real step and watch what happens. Notice how much you've quietly agreed to wait for, and make your decisions about the life that exists, not the one you were promised. Someone who's building a future with you will show you slowly in things you can see. Someone who's future faking will keep describing it beautifully, endlessly, and somehow it's always just out of reach.